Candy, love and life coaching delivered straight up like your best friend would if she were a licensed and certified mental wellness professional. If you don't know me yet, I'm Candace Harper, relationship coach and hypnotherapist, and I'm here to support you with feeling epic, enough, peaceful, illuminated, and courageous in every area of your life, but particularly your love life, whether you're single or not. I'm also here to teach all of us how to vibe high and manifest the sweetest possible love in this lifetime. I'm here to teach you how to ask for candy and to get it. If you've got something to say about what you hear, email me your comments and questions, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok @CandyLoveCoach. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Leave a review so I can shout you out. And share with the friends and family that you know will benefit from this spoonful of sugar. Now let's get started. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where I talk about healing, self-care, love, sex, relationships, and what it truly takes to be amazing on the daily. I'm Candace Harper, lovecoach.com, honey, and I help heartbroken people become wholehearted with results-proven coaching and hypnotherapy so that we can all heal the past, love ourselves unconditionally, and start our love lives over from a clean slate. I'm also here to support all of us in feeling epic, enough, peaceful, illuminated, and courageous in every aspect of our lives, but particularly in love, whether you're single or not. All right, hopefully you have subscribed already to Ask for Candy on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you normally download your podcasts. Also, you can email us at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. You can leave questions, comments, whatever you're feeling, let us know. And a lot of times I'll use that as topics in a later broadcast. Today's topic, wherever you are in the world, whatever time zone you're in, wherever you are when you're listening to this, our topic is, this ain't gonna be for long. Now, not the show itself. Who knows? The show itself may or may not go long. But I want to talk about the soundtrack of being non-committal. The thoughts and beliefs that we espouse to that keep us from having long-term commitments, keep us from being long haulers. What does it take to transform from a commitment phobe to a long hauler? Whenever what we want is incongruent with what we have, it takes changing who we have been. Now, some of y'all out there, especially if you've been single for a long time and you're feeling like, oh, but I really, really want a relationship. I want a relationship. Candy, you don't understand. You may not consider yourself to be a commitment phobe, but listen to the show today. My invitation is to listen to the show and just see where you might recognize some thoughts, beliefs, behaviors that actually might indicate that there's a little more commitment phobia than you're willing to admit to. And if you hear yourself in it, great. Even if you don't, you're going to get some nuggets today. So, like I said, it takes changing who we've been. In other words, if I want to go from broke to millionaire, I'm going to have to develop a whole new different set of habits, ways of being, and behaviors in order to change my experience of being poor, right? If I want to be a relationship long hauler, I'm going to have to develop a whole new set of habits, ways of being, and behaviors in order to make that experience happen and to change my relationship status. And so today I'm sharing with you a list of thoughts and beliefs that could be what's dictating the ways of being and behaviors that are keeping you repeating the same non-committal old patterns over and over again, even when you're absolutely 100% sure that you want commitment. And remember, none of this is for the purpose of shaming any of us, because I'm right there with you. You're joining a big old club. When we're aware that the quality of our beliefs and thoughts dictate the quality of our ways of being and behaviors, which dictates the quality of our experience and outcomes, we get to be empowered to improve the quality of our experience and outcomes. We get to go from broke to millionaire, lonely to connected, non-committal to a relationship long hauler. We get to change who we be in order to have something different than what we have. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the beliefs that can play like soundtracks in our mind, which even when we believe that we're committal, if any of these soundtracks are playing, ultimately we are a commitment phobe. There is a non-committal paradigm in our midst, right? So the first one, this ain't gonna be for long. It's funny because I was just talking to my Joe, who is a very special person in my life. And we were having a conversation about how similar we have been in our lives around relationships, careers, just different choices that we've made. We have a lot in common. We have a lot of similarities with how we've approached. And as we were talking, it just came to me, and I'm talking literally 2 hours ago, not even that long ago. I said, one of the things that always rang true for me in the back of my mind, in hindsight, as I look back, whether it was that I was moving to a new apartment, getting a new job, getting into a new relationship, one of the things that was always on the soundtrack of my mind was, this ain't gonna be for long. Interesting, right? Not consciously. I was not conscious of this soundtrack playing in my head, of these thoughts. I didn't walk into a situation, consciously knowing that this is just what I do. It was completely an unconscious reflex that just nothing was going to be for long. And it could stem from the fact that I was a military brat, so we moved around a bit when I was young. It could stem from the fact that that was sort of what was modeled for me, even though my parents stayed together forever. There was always this, my mom on the verge of leaving. Like if their fight was too bad, she was ready to walk out the door, so that, there was this sense of like at any moment it could happen. It could end, even though it never did, right? That's how how I perceived and experienced it, right? So I think as an adult, what that had me do was, that's how my non-committal way of being showed up. That's how my fear of commitment showed up, is that I would always pick situations where this ain't going to be for long could be the truth. Whether it was, the fact that I was a freelancer for so long. So when you're a freelancer, no jobs are permanent jobs. And even when I did take jobs that were meant to be permanent jobs, they were jobs that weren't really in alignment with what I was truly passionate about. They were just jobs that were going to pay the bills. I set up my living situations as this ain't going to be for long situations. So, going into a living situation, not really sure how I was going to afford it in the long term, maybe knowing I could afford it within the first 4 or 5 months or less sometimes. There was a this ain't gonna be for long soundtrack playing in the head. And relationships. So coupling up with people who, for whatever reason, there was gonna be something that made it so it couldn't be for long. Even my longest relationship, which was 13 years, there was the air of, how could this be for long? We come from such different cultures. We were young at the time, so different religions. Neither one of us was gonna convert to the other's religion. And then all the people that I picked subsequently after that to date and be in relationships with, there was something about them that was inherently a short-term issue. And I'm not going to go into all those short-term issues because we have to save that for a whole nother podcast. But if you have a similar soundtrack playing in your mind and you're not cognizant of it, it's very easy to have one short-term experience after another. And it could be playing in your mind for whatever reason. Like I said, I was conditioned to believe that situations weren't supposed to last, right? And if you've had any sort of similar experience where maybe your family moved a lot when you were a child, or things changed very quickly, rapidly, on a regular basis, I think, a lot of people, children who were raised in the military, that sense of, you're never in a particular place for too long. I do think that develops some level of pathology around commitment. So things like that would support that soundtrack playing in my head. And so in wanting to become a long hauler, I had to get really aware of it and present to it and the choices that I was making based on needing that soundtrack. And it was interesting because as I was talking to my friend Joe today, we were talking about how similar we were around it, how much we had in common about it, and what it might take to change that soundtrack and change that belief. And luckily, he's someone who's very visionary and creative, like I am, as far as the future is concerned. And we're both at a stage in our lives where actually creating our visions is it's at its most important point in this stage of our lives. I think you reach a threshold where you start to realize life is not really forever. You might cognitively know it when you're 30 years old, but I think when you're 30 years old, there's a part of you that still thinks you have so much time. When you're 40 years old, you start to feel a little older, but there's still that sense of you, well, it's not over yet. When you start to get closer to 50 years old, you're like, okay, if I don't do it now, it ain't gonna happen. So one thing that we're really sort of meshing around is this commonality of, so far I've lived my life so non-committally, it's time to actually do what needs to be done to create long haul visions, right? Number 2, one of the beliefs that plays like a soundtrack in our mind: I've already done all my growth work. I've seen therapists, I've done all the self-improvement I need to. Still, I don't have what I want, but I've done everything, right? So this is one of those soundtracks, those thoughts that will definitely keep us non-committal, because anytime you start to think you've done all you need to do to get to where you need to get and you haven't gotten there yet, you are putting blocks in your own way. I had a consultation this week with a woman who I think, clearly, her friend had referred her and, was going to be willing to pay for her to actually do my hypnotherapy program. And for whatever reason, she already had preconceived that she didn't want to be in a position of having my support. I don't take it personally. It could have been about me. It could have been about a million different things. But in having a conversation with her, I got a sense that she had already decided that she knew all she needed to know, and I wouldn't be the one to help her get any further. Now, I didn't get any sense that she thought anybody else would be the one to help her get any further either, but you never know. The point is, when we come from that place with anyone, I don't care. I have I always say that I adopted her as my daughter, and she's in her early 20s, and she tells me things and talks to me about her experience in her life, and every time we talk, I get something new or a breakthrough around my own life, because I'm willing to be open to my learning, my knowledge, my wisdom, my growth coming from wherever it can come from. That idea that someone is, too inferior to be able to teach me something, that there's no way anyone can tell me something I don't already know because I've already done all of the work, which there's no such thing as all of the work. If life is growth. So if you want to continue living, you want to continue growing, right? And to be a yes for all of that comes to you. But when I'm non-committal, I get to a point where it's, and it's about control. So I have controlled and contained exactly what I need to know, and I'm putting it all in practice. And I'm not open to anything else because I've already figured out what I think is going to work for me. And even though I don't have what it is that I want, I'm done with being open to anything else. Or I'm done with being open to things that come my way for whatever reason. I think for this particular woman, it was an egoic reason. I think it had more to do with, she and her friend, she wanted to be the advice giver, the wisdom giver, and she didn't want her friend to refer her for something that might cause a breakthrough for her because she wants to be the one who's right, who knows it. Meanwhile, it's like the blind leading the blind. So, that friend that keeps you single and they're telling you all kinds of things that are what they do and they stay single. It was that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that to be a hypocrite, because I've been a love coach who, was single for a while, purposely single for a while after being in a really rough relationship, knowing that I made that choice, but also understanding that what I offer people is the avenue into discovering their own answers, not the advice on what they should do, how they should do it, and whether somebody's right for them, because that's a very dangerous, slippery slope. We all know our own answers. What I help people do as a coach is come to their own answers, and I'm trained to do that, whether I'm single or in a relationship. Your average single homegirl who's not trained to do that is going to be giving you advice based on what she does, her perspective, what she knows is right for her, what she thinks is right for her. So you'll have one single girl keeping another girl single. And I guess the same thing happens with boys as well, men and women. When you have somebody who doesn't have any training except for what they've been through and what they've experienced, that's the advice that they give you. And that's what they think you should do. And when you're close enough to someone, you can take those things on and end up with the same experience and outcomes that they have, right? So if you have that soundtrack of, I've already done all my work, I've seen all the therapists, I've done all the improvement I need to, there's not much more I need to do. If you are not someone who is committed to being a lifelong learner, there is a soundtrack of non-commitment in your mind. Like, you can't even stay committed to growth, and growth is what we're here for. You don't want to stay committed to learning wherever you can learn from. And that's what we're here for. That's what our relationships are for. Continued growth, continued evolution, continued learning. So you want to be aware. Is that one of the soundtracks that's playing in my mind that's having me stay a non-committal person? And how can I transform it in order to become a long hauler? Well, I can keep growing and learning until I see what I want come to fruition, and then keep growing and learning in order to maintain what I want, and keep growing and learning to see other things that I want come to fruition, and know that that is the continuing journey, and take the opportunities when they come and be a yes for those learning opportunities when they come. Because all of them are learning opportunities. Everyone who shows up in our lives is a learning opportunity. Number 3, if they don't meet my standards, right? Anyone who starts that, I don't want to be with anyone if they don't meet my standards. And we talk about this all the time, but let's talk about it, how it shows up for non-commitment, for being non-committal. So if someone is not, fitting in all of my parameters and requirements, and they are not behaving in a way that I think they should behave, in ways that indicate to me what is and isn't, even though I might be, coming from my own traumas as far as what I expect in someone else's behaviors. And if they don't meet my expectations about how I think I should act. So a lot of times we'll say, well, I wouldn't do this or I wouldn't do that. And so we cast that onto potential partners. I wouldn't be with someone who would do that. They shouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Like that comparison of who should do what and how someone should show up in order to show us what we want to be shown. I have a lovely client who I adore so much. And, we were doing some work around, her ex. One of the reasons that they broke up is because she always felt like he wasn't listening. Come to find out through our work and conversation, he was listening. He just wasn't displaying it in the way that she would hope it would be displayed. And so her experience of him was that he didn't listen. And that experience of him caused her to behave in a way that she had to fight for being heard. And fighting for being heard is one of the worst ways of actually being heard in a relationship. So when we start raising our voice, yelling at people, trying to make them listen, I've been there myself many times, that we might as well just put earplugs in their ears. And that's the experience that she was getting from it, right? So the original thought, if they don't meet my standards, they already got to come with everything in place. They got to behave in ways that make it comfortable for me, that make me feel like that's loving. They have to, come with my requirements. Non-committal shit, because you know what? They ain't coming with all of your requirements. They just ain't coming that way. They don't come that way. They might have a few. I was listening to a Clubhouse discussion the other day, and somebody said something about the 80-20 rule. You'll be lucky if you get 80% of your requirements. You'll be very lucky if you get 80% of your requirements. You'll be lucky if you get 50% of your requirements. And the rest of it is about growth, growing together, allowing, yourself to be mirrored, allowing yourself to see what your triggers are, what needs to be healed. Allowing yourself to learn unconditional acceptance, love and acceptance. That's what love is. If you want to be relating in love, that means that people have to be able to be who they are, even if they're not what you require them to be, what you expect them to be. But when we're walking around with our requirements, our standards, our needs for them to be this, that, and the other thing, we are in a non-committal mindset. We do not become long haulers in this way. And even if we think we're becoming a long hauler, you can marry somebody with this paradigm of thinking. And trust me, your marriage will not last as long as you still need for them to meet those standards. Trust me, your marriage will not last as soon as they start showing signs of not meeting your standards that you say you didn't see before, or that you didn't recognize before. So that's the journey of long haulership, is that I can be with the fact that you don't meet a majority of my standards, or you don't meet a big chunk of what I think should be required of somebody in order to be with me. Now, I know there's a bunch of you out there, well, Candace, that's how we end up in relationships with people who don't work. That's how we end up in relationships where we get taken advantage of, blah, 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 blah. So recognize that, without going on too much of a tangent, because that's a whole nother show, that all comes from a set of beliefs and mindset as well. If I can accept who you are and let you be where you're at, I'm going to get a whole different experience from you than not being able to accept where you are, but still holding on to you with attachment and either trying to force you to be the way I want you to be, or just being resentful or mad about the fact that you're not the way I want you to be. So that's going to be a whole different experience with a person than actually being able to accept that someone may not be impressive to your family. Someone may not have a good credit score. Someone may not have the pedigree that you would like for them to have. Someone may not have the height that you would like for them to have. To be able to be in acceptance around all of those things. And by accept, I mean not settle, accept that that's what it is. Because there's other things that far outweigh those things that actually will have you be a long haul relationship. And I'm going to talk about what those things are as soon as we finish up with these non-committal thoughts. So yeah, that's number 3 of the non-committal thoughts. Number 4, and a friend of mine used to say this all the time: if you fuck with me, you stuck with me. And that is the theme of anxious attachment. And it's a covert non-committal thought. So it sounds so committal, right? Like, if you have sex with me, the hormones will be raging. I will fall so much in love and oxytocin all over you and never let you go. You are stuck with me. That sounds so committal, right? But in essence, what it is it's an attachment sabotage. Because it means it's the moment that we have that exchange where it changes my chemical biology and what happens to my body happens to my body, I'm not going anywhere. I don't care. You are stuck with me, and I'm going to do what I need to do to keep you and keep attached to you. And usually, that suggests that it's in a very anxious way. You are stuck with me. You are stuck with me because we have had sex, right? And the reason that it's covert non-committal is because who can maintain under those circumstances? Even somebody who started out truly in love with you, if the act of sex then attaches them to you in a highly tethered way, for lack of a better way to describe it, it can kill whatever love and excitement and interest might be there naturally, organically, and in a way that is healthy. So in a way, you're setting up the whole situation to be attached and expectant, and, you're stuck with me. Stuck with me. That doesn't even sound like anything anybody would want to do, right? So I can sabotage so many relationships by coming with that mentality. You are stuck with me. Ooh, child. All right, we're on number 5. So I'm on my own, which I call this the lone wolf cry. I'm on my own is the lone wolf cry of non-commitment. If you ever want to know if you are a non-committal person, you could be sitting in a marriage right now. But if your constant soundtrack or consistent soundtrack is I'm on my own, I got to do this by myself, I have no one to support me, I'm all alone, I have no one who's going to help me, no one's going to come in and help me, nobody's going to do it as good as I want them to do it, I don't trust anybody else to do what I need to do, nobody really understands, it would take me longer to explain it than to actually do it. No one's going to do it as well as me. Like, if those are the songs that you're singing based on the I'm on my own soundtrack, just know that you are non-committal from way back, because it actually requires you to be a long hauler. It actually requires you to receive support, to accept support, to be in admission that you can't do it all by yourself, that it's impossible to do it all alone, and that is what other people are here for. We are here to connect and support each other. And so without that presence and acknowledgement and being able to put that into practice, you stay in non-committal and you don't get to be a long hauler. Now, you might end up in a marriage, but I'm sure you know as well as I know, there are a lot of people out there in a marriage who are more lonely than they ever were, and feeling more alone than they ever did. So if you're not experiencing a couplehood or a marriage as being supported and loved and committed, you're still non-committal. You're still, not connected, right? And we're talking about turning into a long hauler, somebody who can sustain connection for a long time. So those are just some. I mean, I imagine if you've been listening intently that you might have come up with your own soundtracks, thoughts, beliefs for non-commitment, things that keep you lonely. I have another friend, and one of her things is, we're of a certain age. She's a few years older than me, not many. And one of her issues is, older men have low-hanging ball sacks. Yes, you heard me right. Low-hanging ball sacks. It's one thing she doesn't want to have to deal with. So that's some non-commitment for you right there. Because if that's one of your main requirements, or if that's one of those things that, and I'm not saying it's not valid. It's not valid to say there's certain aspects of people's bodies I'm not attracted to. It's very valid. But then it's like, what am I willing to let go of so that I can long haul with somebody and I don't have to make it about external things that are, that have nothing to do with really the workability of a relationship in the long term, right? Physical anomalies, differences in people's bodies, things like that. That stuff that we try to use when really what it is that we just don't want to commit. We don't want to get in there and commit. So what are some of the most important things to gravitate to when we are commitment phobic? So like I mentioned earlier, rather than looking for the standards to be met, rather than trying to, make sure that you have somebody that's going to be impressive to your family and friends, who's going to be, the star quarterback of your life, somebody who's going to fit all those external parameters, here are some things to consider as far as what you experience with another person and whether that makes them someone that you can be a long hauler with. Right? Or some things I should say to put in practice of experiencing. So one thing about commitment phobes is that, a big challenge that we often have is the fear of revealing oneself. So a lot of times we're commitment phobic because there's some shame, there's some secrets, there's some things that we're hiding that are unhealed. And so it's easier to sabotage something than to, especially if you find that the relationship starts to break down after a certain amount of time. Let's say you can't get past 3 months. You can't get past 6 months. That usually means that there's something where there's some shame, then something might happen and then things come up and then you start thinking about whatever feels shameful. Sometimes it's, financial situation. I got a big old student loan debt at almost 50 years old. Things like that we can shame ourselves about. Those things will often have us commitment phobic because we don't want to face the shame. We don't want to be with someone and have them turn around and say, oh my God, like, why do you have so much debt? What's wrong with you? Why did you do this thing? Why does it look like that? Right? Sometimes it's shame around our bodies. Shame around, if we have any sort of illnesses or anomalies. Sometimes it's shame around our emotional landscape or our past, things that we've done in the past. So, like I said, one of our biggest challenges as commitment phobes is the fear of revealing oneself. We don't want to reveal those things. So when it gets to the point where they might be revealed, a lot of times we'll cut it off. And then that's coupled with the fear of disappearing into another person's life. Right? So, it's like two-sided. I'm afraid of being seen. I'm afraid of truly being seen for exactly who I am, but I'm also afraid of losing my identity in a relationship to where I'm not important in the relationship anymore. I'm just there for the sake of them. And it's impossible to have a valuable identity in a relationship if one is afraid to be completely revealed. That's the catch-22, honey. Is that we got to be able to be completely revealed in order to be long haulers. We have to be seen and accepted in order to long haul in a relationship, right? I mean, without white knuckling and wanting to kill ourselves, without being at somebody all the time. If you really want to go from non-committal to being a long hauler in something and you want it to be a quality something, be willing to reveal yourself. Be willing to be seen. Look for someone who sees you. Even if you let yourself out in little drips and drabs, Or, if you're someone who puts it all on the table, whoever you are, that person for you is going to see all of those things that you might be a little embarrassed about, know all those things you might be a little embarrassed about, and they're going to have no problem with it. Even if they have a moment of hesitation about it, it's not going to matter, because if they're seeing you, accepting you, and actually loving you in the way that a healthy partnership would, then there's things about you that they may not have chosen, but they're willing to accept. And it's very, very important. That's why I always go back to how much I worry about how the red flag mentality is just overreaching, because what it has caused for a lot of people is a zero tolerance, zero acceptance for people's failings, differences, mistakes, anomalies, special needs, whatever. All of us come with some shit. Whatever that might be. None of us perfect. And so, what a lot of us do, we get to a certain point in life and have this expectation that who we attract and who we take on is going to be even better than we are. It don't work like that. I mean, it does happen sometimes, but we're talking about going from being a commitment phobe to a long hauler, right? So if I'm going into something with someone who I think is better than I am, that's covert commitment phobe right there, right? I'm setting myself up to fail. So it's very important that all those things that we're shameful of, embarrassed about, no, you don't have to tell every single person that you meet in a your dating journey, or as you're meeting people, as you're going along. But you do want to know that as you're getting to know that person, revealing is the most important part about it. And revealing with compassionate honesty, everything that's true about you. And letting that be the thing that gives you the litmus for whether this is someone I can transform from a commitment phobe to a long hauler with. You see me, you accept me. You see me, you think I'm beautiful even when I don't think I'm beautiful. You can see me, see who I am. You can see what's inside of me. You can see my core values. And you accept and appreciate, you align with them. Right? That's what two people are looking for in each other in order to start practicing long haulership, for lack of a better phrase. And then the next one is future visioning. What are we creating together? Something to gravitate towards when you're commitment phobic. It's going to be hard. Trust me on this. And it's easy to make it stand as sort of a paper brown bag test. Like, are you meeting up with what I think creation and visioning should look like? Are you meeting up? Do you have a 5-year plan that sounds like the 5-year plan I've decided that my partner has to have? It's very different from, can we create together? Are we able to collaborate on things together? Are we able to see visions together? Are we able to talk about the future in a way that has both of us committed to seeing it happen? Right? Because it's no longer about some sort of, maintaining the sexual attraction, which that's a great thing too. But when we make it just about what is in the immediate, what is the external stuff that we're willing to commit to, we set ourselves up for stuff that is not, it's almost like, I don't know, skydiving with cotton balls. It's who's going to want to do that? Right? And even if you do it, obviously it's not going to work. You need a parachute, right? And being able to future vision with someone and have something to commit to, that's your parachute. Not each other, not I'm committing to being attached to you, because there's going to be days when you can't even stand the sight of that person. There's going to be days where you don't want to have sex with that person. There are going to be days when you don't even want to have anything to do with that person. Or they're going to have bad breath. Or there's going to be something about them or something about something they say where you're like, ooh, really? But when you have a shared vision where you've created something together, you know the long game, you know what you're looking to create together, and you share it, you know that you both want to see it happen, and you both are showing signs of moving forward to have it happen, Then you have the ability to have commitment. And for a commitment phobe, that can be scary as fuck. But that's why you need to be looking for that if you want to go from being a commitment phobe to a long hauler. Because let's face it, that commitment phobia also comes from not having a belief in the longevity. So create something that has longevity. Something that represents longevity. Right? And then the last one, supportive energy from both sides. Right? You want to be looking to, want to be gravitating towards that. You want to be creating that. Supportive energy, supportive energy, supportive energy. That ability to buoy the other person up and say, I see your greatness. I may see your failures as well. But too often that's what we're mainly focusing on is the failings, the failures, the things that aren't great. And that's problematic, especially if you're a commitment phobe. Because if those are the things that you're always focusing on, and I'm talking to those people who've been married for years and all they've done is criticize their partner as well, because they're headed for divorce anyway. Right? So if you start out and all you can see are the things that don't work, doesn't matter what words you use or how you try to fake your cheerleading or, whatever you try to do from the lens of all I can see are the things that are failures, the things that don't work. You can't truly be authentically supportive, right? And therefore you can't truly authentically be committed. So as a commitment phobe, you want to be a long hauler, look for and generate supportive energy. I see those great things about you. I think those great things are wonderful. I don't need to focus on the things that don't work about you. I don't need to focus on those things that are not quite what I would like for them to be if I'm focusing on all the things that I think are great about you. And I did a show, I don't know, it was either the last show or the show before that was about potential. And this goes back to, falling in love with someone's potential. And if you remember, if you listened, hopefully you listened to the show, is that it's not about falling in love with their potential. You can fall in love with someone's potential. You just want to make sure that they're also in love with their own potential. They don't have to already have everything that you expect them to have or that you want them to have in order for you to support them. Are they in love with their potential? Are they fired up and excited about what they are creating in life? What they are future visioning? Are they showing consistently as you're getting to know them that they are moving on those things? That they are engaged in those things happening. You see stuff like that and you see the tangible results and you continue to support it. What you've got is a long-term commitment that can work, or the possibility of a long-term commitment being able to work. Because now here we are supporting each other in our greatness, supporting each other in our dreams and what is possible for each other, right? That's the stuff that can have you not behaving from the commitment phobia, behaving from wanting to be a long hauler. If a long hauler is truly what you want to be. If the commitment phobia is something you don't feel like you can get around because you've got a list of reasons for why you have that phobia, then there is some healing to be done. And guess what? Guess what about that healing? I'm here to help. I'm here to help you. Because that commitment phobia stuff, it usually has some very deep roots in what was modeled for us when we were young, very deep roots in, what we experienced, what we were told as we were growing up when it comes to relationships, what we were around. So yeah, that's what I do. I help support with all that stuff that stands in the way of what we say that we want. Because when what we say we want and what we have are two different things, there's some blocks that are standing in the way. So what I want you to walk away with more than anything else is that in order to be able to have a different experience than we've had before, we have to be willing to believe and think differently so that we can behave and act differently for a different experience. And that is the most important thing. If you want to work with me around it, if you want to heal that commitment phobia and actually find out what it truly is at its root, you can always get at me. You can email me, Candace at CandaceHarperLoveCoach.com. Also, if you suffered a breakup in the last year or so, or if you're in the midst of a relationship breakdown right now, maybe it's your commitment phobia coming up. I don't know. It could be a myriad of things. If you are ready to go from heartbroken to wholehearted so that you can get into that space where you can look for those important things to gravitate towards when you're trying to transform commitment phobia. I mean, are you ready? Are you at a 7 to 10, 0 to 10, 0 meaning you're not ready. You just want to sit in it. 10 being it's do or die. You are ready to go from heartbroken to wholehearted. I have a program. It's called Heartbroken to Wholehearted. It's a combination of both coaching and hypnotherapy. It's 9 weeks of individualized love, attention, and learning your way to healing the past, loving yourself unconditionally, and starting your love life over from a clean slate. All you got to do is just email me. Ask me for the consultation link. We'll sit down. We'll have a complimentary consultation. If you are truly ready to make an emotional and financial investment for your freedom, your physical wellness, and how you experience your love life, email me today, Candice@CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com, and ask for that link. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Candy Love Coach. Also on TikTok, at Candy Love Coach. I'm singing songs on TikTok too a little bit. I just started, so check me out. And I think that's it. That is it for this week, my sweet love. I just want you to know that if you find through listening to this show today that you do have commitment phobia, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. It's just about healing those thoughts and beliefs so that you can have new ways of being, so you can become a long hauler, somebody who can sustain a relationship, if that's what you want to do. The idea is to be looking out for where what you say you want and what you have are the same thing. You just want to get those things in alignment. Anyway, I love you so much, my sweetheart. Until next time, never forget that you are a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and then ask for candy. I love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah.